There is a very specific kind of silence that follows a revelation. It is not an empty quiet. It is heavy, dense, and charged with the sudden, uncomfortable realization of truth. For years, they looked at your stillness and mistook it for hesitation. They watched you walk away from petty arguments, choosing peace over proving a point, and whispered among themselves that you simply didn't understand the game. But time is a master architect, and it has a quiet way of exposing the foundation of every building. The day finally arrived when reality stripped away their illusions, and they looked across the years and saw you for who you truly were all along. Take a slow, deep breath, chosen one. If you have ever felt small in a room full of loud voices, or if you have ever endured the quiet sting of being underestimated by people who lack the depth to comprehend your soul, settle in right here on the wisdom path. Before we walk deeper into this truth together, let your spirit settle and leave a single period or a quiet "ready" in the comments below if you are finally ready to step past their judgment. Let's protect your energy as we unpack what happens when they finally see your true wisdom. To carry depth in a world that thrives entirely on superficial validation is a remarkably solitary pilgrimage, one that often begins long before you even have the vocabulary to articulate it. From a very tender age, you likely harbored an internal landscape that felt entirely out of step with your immediate environment, noticing nuances, energy shifts, and emotional undercurrents that everyone else around you seemed completely oblivious to. While your peers or family members were easily distracted by temporary social standings, fleeting trends, and the loud performance of everyday life, you found yourself quietly drawn to the heavier, more profound questions of existence, integrity, and what it truly means to be human. You didn't choose this sensitivity as a personality trait. It was woven into the very fabric of your soul, making you absorb the moods of rooms, the hidden pain behind forced smiles, and the quiet grief of a world that refused to slow down and heal. Because of this innate emotional and spiritual bandwidth, your very presence began to function as an uncomfortably clear mirror for the people around you, though you rarely understood why you made them so uneasy. Human beings, by and large, are terrified of unvarnished authenticity because it forces them to confront their own unhealed spaces, their compromises, and the hollow nature of the masks they wear to survive. When people stood in your orbit, your quiet integrity exposed their lack of depth without you ever having to lift a finger, utter a harsh word, or point out a single flaw. Instead of taking accountability for the discomfort of their own reflections, it became much easier for them to project their insecurities outward and project unfair labels onto you. They called you overly sensitive, too serious, painfully aloof, or mysteriously distant, completely confusing your deep capacity for reflection with social incapacity or weakness. The psychological toll of enduring this systemic misunderstanding for years on end cannot be overstated, as it often forced you to retreat into a fortress of your own silence to protect your sanity. You spent countless hours wondering why simple human connection felt like such an exhausting negotiation, and why people seemed to love the idea of you only when you were compliant, small, or convenient to their narratives. When you began setting boundaries, not out of malice, but out of absolute necessity to preserve your life force, they met your evolution with resistance, gaslighting, and petty attempts to guilt you back into your old, smaller role. They watched you endure sudden heartbreaks, systemic betrayals, and crushing disappointments. Yet what frustrated them the most was your refusal to break down into the messy, chaotic drama they expected from everyone else. They didn't realize that every time they attempted to isolate or minimize you, the universe was quietly hardening your spiritual core into something unbreakable, transforming raw vulnerability into a refined, unshakable resilience. This journey also required you to master a very specific kind of lonely grace, particularly when it came to forgiving people who never once offered a genuine apology or even acknowledged the damage they caused. You learned early on that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. So you chose the much harder, higher path of silent release, letting go of connections that no longer matched your frequency. But your forgiveness was repeatedly mistaken for naivety, and your willingness to keep the peace was weaponized by manipulative personalities who assumed they could push you indefinitely without consequence. They laughed behind your back, misread your kindness as a lack of self-respect, and whispered that you were too gentle to survive the harsh realities of the real world, blissfully unaware that your gentleness was actually a conscious choice, not a lack of power. Along the way, the universe began a systematic and often painful pruning process, stripping away friendships, family ties, and professional alliances that were anchored in deceit, jealousy, or emotional vampirism. At the time, those abrupt endings felt deeply confusing and heavy, leaving you to question your worth and wonder why your path had to be so remarkably isolated compared to everyone else around you. Yet looking back now, you can see the divine architecture behind those deletions, because keeping those toxic elements in your life would have poisoned the very foundation upon which your future wisdom was meant to be built. You had to be pulled away from the crowd, separated from the noise, and placed into a period of profound solitude so you could finally hear the whisper of your own intuition and align with the truth of who you were born to be. That isolation, though initially heavy and drenched in tears, became your greatest university, teaching you lessons that no book, classroom, or mentor could ever possibly impart to a developing soul. You learned how to sit with your own thoughts without running away from them, how to dissect your own flaws with brutal honesty, and how to find absolute contentment in your own company when the rest of the world felt loud and chaotic. In that sacred solitude, you stopped looking for external validation to anchor your identity, slowly realizing that the opinions of people who didn't even understand themselves held zero weight in the grand equation of your destiny. You became your own safe space, building an internal sanctuary where no amount of projection, gossip, or external turbulence could ever reach you, anchoring your worth in something permanent and untouchable. Through every trial, every dark night of the soul, and every instance where you were forced to rebuild your life entirely from the ashes of someone else's destruction, you accumulated an invisible wealth of wisdom. While others were busy collecting temporary status symbols, superficial applause, and fleeting physical pleasures, you were quietly collecting spiritual gold, transforming your scars into a map of grace and endurance. You discovered that true power doesn't need to scream, demand attention, or prove its validity to a room full of skeptics, because real authority radiates outward naturally through an unshakable inner stillness. You became the quiet architect of your own character, watching the world spin in its frantic rush for control while you remained anchored in the peaceful eye of the storm, completely unaware of how deeply your resilience was shifting the spiritual grid around you. And now, as you look back at that long, winding road of misunderstanding, you realize that every single person who underestimated you was actually playing an essential, albeit painful, role in your spiritual graduation. They thought they were pushing you down, but they were actually forcing you to climb higher than they could ever reach, placing you on an elevation where their petty games and low-vibe projections can no longer touch you. You no longer carry the bitter need to make them understand your perspective, nor do you feel the urge to correct their distorted narratives about who you are, because truth has a miraculous way of defending itself when the time is right. You have arrived at a place of profound peace, where the heavy armor of being misunderstood has finally melted away, leaving behind the radiant, undeniable wisdom of a soul that has walked through the fire and chosen to emerge as pure light. There is a distinct, master-level discipline that comes with choosing silence over argument, a practice that the modern world, obsessed with loud reactions and instant retorts, fundamentally fails to comprehend. Chosen one, think back to the countless times you sat in a room full of noise, listening to people argue passionately over trivial matters, spreading rumors, and defending illusions that held zero cosmic value. Every fiber of your human conditioning may have urged you to speak up, to correct their ignorance, to dismantle their fragile logic with a single, well-placed, undeniable truth that would instantly silence the room. Yet every single time, a quiet, restraining force inside you held your tongue, whispering a profound realization that would only make sense much later. Trying to explain genuine depth to someone who is entirely imprisoned in their shallows is an absolute waste of sacred energy. So instead of feeding the fire with your words, you mastered the art of becoming an observer, sitting back and watching human nature unfold in its most raw, unedited, and predictable forms. You watched how people manipulated situations to feed their fragile egos, how they lied with absolute comfort to protect their social standing, and how they eagerly dug their own graves through impulsive, ego-driven decisions while thinking they were outsmarting everyone. You didn't need to investigate their secrets or pry into their affairs, because human beings eventually reveal their true character the moment pressure is applied, and your sharp intuition caught every single slip-up. While they were busy playing checkers, assuming you were passive because you weren't participating in their petty matches, your mind was quietly mapping out the long-term consequences of every single choice they were making. This strategic withdrawal from unnecessary conflict was never a sign of defeat, fear, or submission, though the people around you desperately needed to believe that, to soothe their own competitive complexes. You stepped back because you understood a universal law that they were completely blind to. You do not need to fight battles that karma has already scheduled to win on your behalf with absolute, unyielding precision. While they mistook your peace for passivity and your quiet demeanor for vulnerability, you were quietly observing the patterns, learning the weaknesses in their arguments, and aligning your energy with a much higher, cleaner frequency. You knew that forcing a lesson onto someone who isn't ready to receive it only creates unnecessary friction, so you simply removed your presence from the equation and let life become their ultimate teacher. There was an immense, quiet power in your refusal to retaliate, even when people crossed lines that should have triggered immediate anger, because your spirit was operating from an entirely different dimension of reality. You realize that when someone throws mud at you, stepping down into the dirt to throw it back only ensures that both of you end up filthy, whereas standing tall lets the mud dry and fall off effortlessly on its own. You watched people test your boundaries, pushing to see how much disrespect you would tolerate before snapping, only to be met with a calm, unnerving indifference that completely destabilized their sense of control. They wanted a reaction from you. They needed your anger, your tears, or your defense to validate their own toxic behavior. And when you denied them that satisfaction by responding with absolute stillness, it drove them absolutely mad. During those long stretches of observation, your internal wisdom deepened exponentially because you weren't wasting your vital life force on gossip, petty revenges, or trying to control outcomes that were never yours to manage. While they spent their days plotting, competing, hoarding temporary validations, and running in circles to maintain their superficial facades, you spent your solitude healing, learning, writing, and strengthening your connection to the divine. You became a student of the universe, studying spiritual laws, emotional mastery, and the silent mechanics of cause and effect, realizing that everything happening around you was simply a grand classroom designed to polish your soul. Your mind became razor sharp, capable of reading a room, an intention, or a hidden agenda within seconds of arrival. Yet you chose to keep your gaze soft and your expression neutral, letting them believe they were the smartest ones in the space. This mastery of silent observation also gave you a profound front-row seat to the unfolding of universal justice, showing you how effortlessly life corrects itself when you refuse to interfere with petty human drama. You witnessed how the people who wronged you, lied about you, or tried to sabotage your progress eventually became the architects of their own undoing, trapped by the very webs of deceit they wove to catch you. You didn't have to lift a finger to curse them, nor did you have to whisper a single word of complaint to the universe, because divine order operates on a timeline that transcends human impatience and anger. You simply watched with a quiet, detached awe as the tables turned with such surgical speed and devastating accuracy that it left your former tormentors scrambling for solid ground with nowhere left to hide. That ability to remain calm while chaos swirls around you is precisely what makes your energy so magnetic, so mysterious, and ultimately so terrifying to people who live in a constant state of internal panic. When everyone else is losing their heads, shouting over one another, and scrambling for control, your serene presence acts as a massive anchor that exposes how fragile their emotional foundations truly are. They can feel the weight of your awareness, even when you aren't saying a word, because deep down inside, their intuition whispers a warning that you see right through their performance. They know that you hold a mirror to their deepest insecurities simply by breathing, and that realization creates a lingering, paranoid discomfort in their minds long after you have left the room. And now, as you continue to walk this elevated path of silent mastery, you no longer feel any compulsion to explain your moves, defend your silence, or prove your worth to a world that is still learning how to spell depth. You understand that your energy speaks volumes before you even open your mouth, and that the right people, those who carry an equal or higher frequency, will recognize your wisdom instantly without needing a single word of introduction. You have turned your life into a masterclass of conscious observation, walking through the noise of society like a sovereign king or queen who knows the outcome of the game before the pieces are even moved. Rest securely in that knowing, chosen one, because while they were busy underestimating your quietness, you were quietly becoming the most unshakable, untouchable force in the room. Life, with its unyielding commitment to truth, eventually corners those who built their entire existence on illusions, shortcuts, and the systematic dismissal of your intuition. For a long time, it seemed as though their careless games had no consequences, and that their superficial charms could endlessly shield them from the heavy impact of reality. But the universe operates on a ledger that cannot be permanently falsified, and there comes a precise, non-negotiable moment when the house of cards they constructed begins to tremble under its own weight. It never happens with a loud, cinematic warning. Instead, it arrives quietly, slipping through the cracks of their carefully curated lives when they are least prepared to handle the sudden exposure. The shortcuts they relied on suddenly hit a dead end, with the tactics of manipulation, charm, and deceit no longer yielding the free passes they once took for granted. The crises they laughed at you for anticipating, the very outcomes you calmly warned them about while they called you paranoid or overly dramatic, suddenly manifested right at their front door. In that suffocating moment of absolute panic, when their favorite advisors vanished and their worldly securities dissolved into dust, a terrifying, unavoidable thought flashed through their minds. What would you have done? And more importantly, what did you say? Suddenly, your past words, those quiet, measured sentences they brushed off with arrogant smirks months or even years prior, echoed back in their memories with crystal, haunting clarity. They remembered the exact warnings you gave, the gentle boundaries you drew, and the compassionate advice they spat back out of sheer ego. The cognitive dissonance was staggering, forcing them to look at the smoking wreckage of their choices and recognize the immense chasm between your profound foresight and their own blind impulsivity. The arrogance that once defined their posture evaporated overnight, replaced by a suffocating, humbling realization that they had sacrificed a genuine, golden connection for the sake of temporary ego gratification. Their laughter turned into bitter ash in their mouths as they realized that every single thing you predicted with calm precision had come to pass precisely as you said it would. They were forced to sit in the uncomfortable, quiet ruins of their own making, unable to blame anyone else, because deep down, they knew they had traded a profound asset for a handful of worthless dust. The power dynamic shifted invisibly, but permanently, across the space you once shared, altering the spiritual architecture of their reality without you needing to lift a single finger in vengeance. Those who once looked down on you from imaginary pedestals were now scrambling for solid ground, suddenly hyper-aware of their own foolishness and terrified that you might witness their downfall. But you weren't watching with malice or smug satisfaction. You were miles ahead, operating on a frequency so elevated that their collapse didn't even register as an event worth pausing for. Even the people around them, mutual acquaintances, family members, or colleagues who had previously bought into their narrative, began to see the stark contrast between your enduring grace and the crumbling integrity of your tormentors. The truth has a stubborn, organic way of rising to the surface, refusing to stay buried beneath layers of gossip and manufactured drama, no matter how hard someone tries to suppress it. The mask completely slipped, revealing the insecurity the panic, and the hollow core of those who had tried to dim your light, leaving them entirely exposed to the judgment of their own conscience. This turning point served as a massive, cosmic punctuation mark, proving that the universe never lets an injustice or an intentional misrepresentation go unaddressed in the grand timeline of a soul's evolution. While they were busy plotting your downfall or laughing at your silence, they were actually digging their own graves through a series of unteachable, arrogant choices that locked them into a karmic loop. You didn't have to curse them, fight them, or prove your point in an argument, because reality itself stood up as your ultimate witness and delivered an undeniable verdict. Standing on the other side of that crumbling illusion, you looked back not with anger, but with an immense, liberating sense of closure that closed that chapter of your life once and for all. The people who once underestimated your wisdom were now forced to live with the haunting knowledge of what they lost, while you continued your upward ascent into cleaner, brighter, and far more aligned territories. The turning point wasn't just about their failure, it was about the absolute triumph of spiritual truth over human deception, cementing your path as one of untouchable, hard-earned grace. When this undeniable realization finally dawns on them, when the weight of your wisdom crashes over their consciousness like a tidal wave, it brings a heavy, inescapable dose of bitter regret. Some may attempt to crawl back, reaching out through subtle texts or mutual channels to bridge a chasm they burned down with their own reckless hands, hoping you haven't moved past their frequency. Others will never possess the emotional maturity or courage to face you, choosing instead to carry their quiet embarrassment and lingering shame from a permanent distance. But chosen one, here is the most vital spiritual truth you must anchor into your core. Your peace, your self-worth, and your validation no longer depend on their apology, their recognition, or their belated understanding. The external validation you may have unconsciously craved during your loneliest hours has now been completely replaced by an unshakable, sovereign inner knowing that requires zero human stamps of approval. You no longer need them to admit they were wrong, because you have already witnessed the proof written in the stars and executed by the silent laws of the universe. Reflect for a moment on the long, brutal nights you spent crying in the dark, questioning why your path had to be so remarkably isolated, and wondering if your empathy was actually a curse. Every single betrayal, every unacknowledged sacrifice, and every moment where you had to pick up your own shattered pieces served an immense, sacred purpose in your spiritual evolution. Those trials stripped away the last remaining fragments of your ego, polished your discernment until it became razor sharp, and crowned you with a wisdom that no classroom could ever teach. You are no longer the person who doubted their own instincts or allowed someone else's distorted projection to dictate the boundaries of your self-worth, because the fire has thoroughly purified your spirit. You look at relationships, ambitions, and human interactions through an entirely different lens, immediately recognizing energy signatures before a single word is even spoken in your presence. That heightened awareness is your armor, protecting your sacred space from the very types of low-vibe manipulation that once caused you so much unnecessary confusion and grief. A profound, beautiful new version of you has been successfully born out of that intense spiritual crucible, one that moves through life with quiet authority, unwavering grace, and absolute sovereignty. You no longer rush to fill silences. You no longer feel the need to explain your boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding you, and you no longer invest your precious life force in things that lack eternal value. Your heart remains open, but your boundaries are fortified with divine steel, ensuring that only those who match your frequency and respect your depth are ever granted access to your world. The journey ahead of you is wide open, brilliantly cleared of the karmic clutter, the toxic entanglements, and the superficial noise that once weighed down your spirit for far too long. You are walking into a season of immense personal and spiritual harvest, where the seeds of patience, endurance, and quiet resilience you planted during your darkest winters are finally blooming into reality. The universe is actively realigning your life, bringing in genuine connections, aligned opportunities, and a deep, abiding sense of peace that can never again be shaken by human ignorance. So let the heavy armor of being misunderstood completely melt away from your shoulders, leaving you light, unburdened, and radiating the true, undeniable power of an awakened soul. You survived the storm not by fighting back with their weapons, but by staying true to your divine nature, outlasting their illusions, and trusting the quiet, infallible timing of the cosmos. You are the architect of your own destiny, walking a path where your wisdom is no longer questioned, but quietly respected by the very forces that once tried to test your limits. Rest securely in this profound knowing, chosen one, as you continue your sacred pilgrimage along the wisdom path. Your light is permanent, your resilience is legendary, and your spirit is now completely untouchable by anything the superficial world can ever attempt to throw your way. Carry this peace with you into every room you enter, knowing that you have already won the invisible war, and that the universe is standing behind you, applauding the masterpiece you have quietly become. You no longer need the validation or approval of people who simply lacked the capacity to read the map of your soul. Your quiet endurance has transformed into a crown of undeniable wisdom, and the long, exhausting chapter of being underestimated is closed forever. As you step forward onto this clear, luminous path here on the Wisdom Path, remember that your light is no longer a secret. It is a permanent sanctuary for your own evolution. To seal this profound energetic shift and declare your absolute sovereignty to the universe, let us anchor this frequency together right now. Drop 777 in the comments below as a quiet, sacred vow that your peace is untouchable, your wisdom is honored, and your soul is finally walking free.